Hello everyone! Today I am making a fan art for the new Dragon Age video game, Dragon Age the Veilguard. I recently played through this game and I thought it was quite fun. So I thought I would make a collage illustration of my favorite character. And my favorite character in this game is Assan. Assan is a baby griffin, one of the last of his kind. He's extremely cute and he's loyal and amazing in all ways. So anywho, I decided that I was going to make a fan art for Assan. So I started off with a sketch, which is this kind of a rough sketch of a composition that I liked, and then I knew I was going to collage illustrate it. I've been doing a lot of collages lately. It's kind of fun. One of my least favorite things about making art is coloring and painting. I get really impatient and I don't have I feel like my rendering never turns out the way that I want it to. So I've been having a lot of fun playing with paper cutting and flat shapes to make colorful images instead. It's really fun and it reminds you of being a kid and being in grade school with your safety scissors and your glue sticks, you know. So yeah, it's been a great time. I've been really enjoying it lately. I use all sorts of different materials in my collages. So sometimes I'll use cut out pictures and I will look for fun textures. So I've been cutting up a lot of old cookbooks with cookies in it. And, with that really up-close picture, the texture of the cookies, it always looks really interesting. So I've had a lot of fun looking through stuff and finding different bits and pieces. But for this collage, I decided to actually paint papers. And then I could kind of try to get the textures that I wanted that way. Because, with the texture of wings and bark and things like that, I thought it would be better that way. So most of the papers that I'm using in this collage are actually made from old greeting cards where I've cut up the cover of the card and the back of the card. I've separated them and then I've painted them. So sometimes if you see me flip over a piece of paper, you'll see some weird picture on it. So for this scene with Assan, I wanted to focus on putting him in Arlithin Forest. That's a location from the game where a lot of his cutscenes take place. Your companion is actually Davrin, the Grey Warden, but he is kind of Assan's adopted father. So they go on little bonding trips and you tag along because you're awkward third wheeling. So in these scenes they're almost always in Arlithin Forest, and this is a place that's got a lot of pretty colors like reds and oranges and yellows. It looks like fall pretty much. So those are the colors that I was pulling from for the colors in the collage. So a lot of the papers that I've colored are painted with gouache or watercolor and then alcohol markers. And my alcohol markers are kind of old, so they get this almost dry brush effect, which I kind of like. So it's really not a big deal to me. But I also like to color and paint over words and text. So some of the papers you can see words on them like happy birthday or some pages I cut out of a cookbook. If you look really hard through the ink, you can kind of make out some words there too. But I like the text effect because it just kind of adds a texture to the papers, that it adds a texture to the papers that's kind of interesting, and with all the pigment on top of it, you can't really make out exactly what it's saying, and it is more abstract that way, but it's interesting dimension and texture to add to the paper. So I think that it worked out pretty well. I also really like working this way because I don't have to feel precious about my art supplies. I have this problem And maybe you can relate if maybe you were one of those kids who, whenever you got like a sticker book, you never used a sticker. That's how I feel with my art supplies sometimes. It's like, wow, my art supplies, they have so much potential. They could do anything. But if I, start using them, then they lose that like shiny, could be anything vibe, and then they are something. And usually, due to lack of confidence and imposter syndrome, etc., that something that they turn into is never as good as the something I had in mind. So, just in general, I have a hard time sometimes using my art supplies up. So, I really enjoy just kind of using them haphazardly and wildly, coloring and scribbling, and just having a lot of fun making the textures on the page. It's great. And, if you ever get like frustrated, you can just scribble. And, yeah. So you'll also notice in this artwork that Assan is interacting with his environment. For the environment, I wanted to add a nug. Originally in my sketch, I had planned to do 3 nugs because nugs are really cute. They are another like mythical creature in the world of Dragon Age. They kind of look like a mix between a pig and a bunny. Because they're kind of like fleshy colored, and then they have really big ears. They mostly live underground. You can find a lot of them like in Orzammar and the deep roads. But you can also find them on the surface as well. So in this Veilguard, a lot of them lived in Arlothan Forest. And in one of the cutscenes with Assan, he follows them around to look for truffles because truffles are his favorite food. And the nugs know where they grow. So I thought it was a really cute scene, and I think nugs are really cute, and Assan's cute. So, cute, cute, cute. It all adds up. You gotta put that stuff together. So, one of the things I liked a lot about Veilguard was the characters. I thought that they were pretty fun. I've always been a really big fan of Dragon Age characters. My favorite Dragon Age game is Origins. I played that a long time ago. And so I thought that, the characters were really good. The combat was a little bit different than I was expecting because coming from older games, which are a lot more like strategy focused, this one was a lot more actiony. And honestly, I'm not the best at like action things and reaction times and stuff, but it wasn't too bad, so that worked out great for me. So I went ahead and made this cardboard figure of Assan that I could layer the other painted papers on top of. This gave me a good sense of like how big he would be in the overall picture. I also wanted to give him kind of an interesting pose instead of just being like sitting there or something. I put him in like almost like a play bow pose, like a dog would do. I like making mythical creature art, so a lot of times I'll take, creatures that already exist, like cats and dogs, and use them as reference. It's just a really good way to understand anatomy, and then you can apply the other features on top of it. So like with the griffin, you could look at, a cat or dog, or even like a lion, because they're like part lion. And then like for the other parts, you could look at birds. So you could look at like an eagle or pretty much any kind of bird, just to kind of get an understanding of the underlying structure of it. And then from there, you can add your own like flair to it. So for Assan, I wanted him to be kind of like his back is arched, like he's like, hey, let's play, or he's kind of like looking around, all interested, because he is a very curious guy. He likes exploring and learning new things, and he seems really smart. So that's what I was thinking with this pose. Then to make his body, I started layering on the other colors of, painted papers. And then a lot of my papers, because they're, recycled or repurposed. You can see text through the paint or ink or whatever, pigment is on there. I like it because I feel like it adds some texture that's kind of interesting. So yeah, to make his body, I layered a few different colors. I wanted to go with kind of warm, neutral colors and then kind of work in some more orangey brown colors to go with it too. You can see that I'm just using a glue stick. This is just like a Elmer's washable glue stick from the store, that you use in grade school, but that's okay. I usually just use scissors to cut everything out. Sometimes I'll use an X-Acto knife, but I just think scissors are easier, so that's usually what I do. Okay, so I'm just building up Assan's face. I use these like gray pieces to kind of build up like a mask around his eyes. And then I cut out his eyes with some paper. I thought about just painting his eyes on, but I decided against it because I do like the way that the paper adds that kind of finish to it where it's all the same, like raised and collaged. Later you'll see me do some painting like with acrylic paint pens, but in this case I cut out the whites of the eyes with paper and then I painted on the iris and pupil with the paint pen. After I finished the mask portion of his face, I went back in and added layers of this roughly texture around his head. And this just kind of gives the impression of feathers more so than the flat paper. Just layering on more with dimension and slight color variation. It makes it look more like feathers and less like, I don't know, a solid block or something. I also added some cute little eyelashes. And I think that he was looking pretty cute. After this part, I'm going to start working on his legs and his wings and build up more textures on those. For his legs, I used this paper here, which was actually from a book that I cut out and I colored over some text. I really like the way that the text looked through the, I think, alcohol marker ink. I think that it ends up having a nice kind of like line quality, which is kind of how I think of like birds' legs and talons having like that texture on them. So as I kept building up textures, I wanted to look for some different colors in the papers that I'd colored. And I spend a lot of time just scribbling on papers when I'm not doing anything, and those are the papers that I'm using for collaging. They're not anything special to look at. They mostly just look like, making Assan was definitely my favorite part of the project. He has a lot more detail than a lot of the things in the background, so it was really fun to play with the colors and the textures and really make him come to life. After I finished with gluing and everything, I went back over his body with some colored pencils and I added some little indications for like feathers. I added some stripes. Assan has kind of like bluish gray stripes across his chest and his forearms, so I added those in as well on the collage pieces. I also went over a lot of the background pieces with my colored pencils and just added a little bit more subtle variation, like adding little circles or adding little grass strokes, just little textures, just to bring everything a little more life and a little more fun. I also added some more background elements. I cut up a lot of background elements that I ended up not being able to use because they were too big. I really wanted to add some more mushrooms and truffles and things, but I just had a really hard time with figuring out placement for things, so I had to kind of keep the back of it a little more simple. So after I moved on to the last step where I'm assembling everything, I wanted to make sure that I used at least one nug. I said earlier that I made 3, but 2 of them turned out kind of funny looking. So I just wanted to use the one, and also, like I said, I had a spacing issue as well, where everything I cut was just a little too big. So I think it turned out well with the one that I did include. And then I added things like little flowers and little embellishments, and just kind of keep the whole thing a little happy and cute and whimsical. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed watching me collage today. I hope you enjoyed playing Dragon Age the Veilguard. If you have played it, let me know what you thought. Let me know who your favorite character was, and all the characters are great, game's great, very fun. And I really enjoyed making this video, and I hope that you guys enjoyed watching it. If you did, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and check in with me again soon where I'll have more content to see. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.